All right, in this video, I'm going to show you how to take an existing photo of yours and choose a section of that photo to illustrate in a digital painting or drawing. And your first step is to choose a photo. Your photo does need to be your own work, so it needs to be your own photo. And then you're going to think about what part of the image you would like to recreate in a drawing slash painting, in which case this is the section that I did. And you're going to tear your paper into kind of that section or shape that you're looking for. So I have a video here kind of showing you how I'm tearing my paper. You're just using regular plain paper. You don't need to like draw it or anything. I like to have it a nice rough edge because I think it just makes it look a little more interesting. And you can tear all the sides or just part of it. You can adjust. Works really well for this part here. So once you have your paper torn, then you're going to take a picture of it. And here's my picture. You want it, when you take a picture of your paper, you want to make sure you have sort of a darker or just solid background around your hand. So you want your hand to be partially, at least in the photo, with the paper. And we're going to be editing this to basically cut it out and put it on top of our photo. So I'm going to go back into Photoshop here, and I'm going to open up my photo first. So I have my photo right here called Ireland. It's the Cliffs of Moher. This is the original photo, and I wanted to replace this part because I feel like it's kind of dark, kind of boring. I wanted to make it more interesting. So here's where I'm going to go in and I'll do File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to put that image of my hand with the paper inside of that. So now it's its own layer. The background is still locked, which is fine. From here, we're just going to be cutting out my hand. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do this relatively quickly. One of my favorites, at least, is to just do the quick selection tool to grab the hand and the paper together. So you can see here I just clicked once and it went ahead and selected the paper. I can click some more and add on the hand. Sometimes if you don't have a solid color background, or if the background is too similar to what your skin tone is or something, sometimes that can cause issues. So if it doesn't work, I can show you a couple other ways too. One-on-one. Here we go. That's pretty good. If I wanted my entire hand, I might not include my sweater in there. But I think I got pretty much everything. Whoop, a little bit there. And if you take too much, like if you select too much, go up here to the minus tool and then you can minus that selection a little bit. Just to say, hey, nope, I don't want all of that. And you can always touch it up later. All right, from here, I'm going to do edit and then copy, edit, paste. This will paste it as its own layer. I like to do that so that way I always have my other layer to go back to. So I turn that layer off, the hand layer, and now I have this layer 1 here to work with. So if I need to do any touching up, I can. I can also, from here, do Control T or edit free transform if I want to resize it. So if I want to resize the hand here, oops, it made my duplicate. I didn't want to do that, but that's okay. I can easily do it that way too. I'll just delete that other one. Okay. So let's say this is kind of where I want to start drawing in the thing that I'm looking for. Looking at the colors, like you can tell, this looks really fake because my hand, the lighting is different than the lighting of the photo. So first we're going to fix that, and then I can also show you some things you can do with the paper because the paper in this photo kind of has a blue tinge to it, and we want to fix that. So I'm going to go into Edit, Adjustments. I'm just going to play around with the levels a little bit, especially with my hand here, because it just seems a little too vibrant, a little too much contrast maybe. I want it to be a little darker. That's too light. I might go into my image adjustments and brightness contrast. That might be a little better. I'll lower the contrast on that too. There we go. I think that's a little better. And feel free to do as many adjustments as you need to. You may even have to do some color balance in there as well. So image adjustments, color balance. Because mine's a little on the blue side. I might just warm that up a little bit. All right, not too bad. The shine on my finger is kind of bothering me, but that's okay. And here's my paper. Now I could play around with, I'll do my quick selection again here on that. Make sure I have the plus selected here. Whoops, there we go. Select the paper. Now I could do kind of an adjustment on just that paper if I want to brighten that up or whatever I need to do there. I'm going to also adjust the color and probably just the brightness on that a little bit. I don't want it to be too bright, and I'm going to color it anyways, but just for a blank canvas, it's nice to start that way. I don't think I need color balance. All right, we'll do select, deselect. Looks pretty good. Now, one thing that I want to talk about with the selections is I'm going to go ahead and reselect that, is you can actually save the selections, and that's going to be really useful for when you're actually doing your drawing, and especially when you're drawing over multiple days, rather than having to select it every time. I like to save my selections. So once you have your paper, torn paper selected, I don't have the hand, just the paper, we're going to go into Save Selection, and you can call it whatever. I'll just call it paper. Click OK. All right, and now I have that selection saved. So let's say I come back the next day and it's not selected. I can go into Select and then Load Selection and find my paper selection there. Click OK, and there it is again. So it's a nice way to keep that as a kind of like a copy rather than having to go back. Because what will happen is as you're filling this in, having to reselect it every time will drive you crazy. So, all right. There's the hand. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. And this is going to be the layer that I'm actually painting or drawing on. So I'm just going to call this painting. And we're just going to start with kind of background. So I'll show you with just my background that I'm thinking of doing here with the water and the sky. It's going to take a little bit of time, and this is going to take some getting used to for those who haven't had a lot of digital art or painting experience. We'll click on the brush tool. And I'm going to make this a soft brush because I want it really soft and fuzzy because the background's kind of soft and fuzzy. I'm going to make this a good size brush, because this is a very large image. I'm going to go about there. All right, and then the other thing you can do is if you go back to your hand layer here, I'm just going to do Control D here. And if I take layer 1 here and I just drop that opacity down a little bit, that's going to give me the ability to trace if I need to. So for those who need a little bit of help, sometimes having that trace or that opacity down just a little bit, which is what I'm going to do, that's going to help a lot. Now I got rid of my selection, so I can just go back in, load selection, should be there. Click OK. Now is a good point to do File, Save As. I'm just going to save it as, we'll just call it photo versus drawing. There we go. Click OK. Save every 10 minutes or so just to be on the safe side. So layer 1 copy is just going to be my actual hand layer. I'm going to see if I can lock that too. I think I should be able to. Perfect. Okay, so I locked that layer. I locked my background. Now I know I'm not going to be able to paint on either of those, and I'm just going to be painting on that layer there. I can grab my eyedropper tool if I want to select a certain color from that existing image. So I'll just start with this color here, that kind of gray blue, and I'm going to paint in my ocean background. Whoops, I got a little off there. You can always do Control Z if you need to. And again, right now I'm just doing my background. I'm not actually going to draw the thistle or anything just yet. Now some tools that maybe you're not as familiar with might be the mixer brush tool, and this is kind of a fun one and you'll kind of see how this works. See how it kind of blends the colors together? Think of it as almost like an oil painting brush. This is a really great way to kind of create more natural looking painting in your digital work. So for something worth trying if you're interested, this works pretty good. Go in. Now you also have to think about, what are you going to change about the image? Because we're not necessarily just recreating what's behind there. Maybe I want it to change. And in my example, I did the sunrise. If I go back, or sunset maybe, I totally changed this, and I actually even changed the color of my water to reflect what it might look like if the sun was setting. So you can also do that. If you would like to change it, feel free to adjust that. I'm just going to kind of show you some basics of getting started, and then we'll kind of take it from there. So at this point, I can also unlock that layer here, and I'm going to bring that up. You can kind of see what we have so far. So if the selection was off, this is kind of what's going on. Again, I'm drawing something else here, not necessarily what is actually on that original photo. And then if I want to zoom in, maybe I want to start doing some more details. I forgot I was going to lower the opacity of this one. This is where, again, the opacity can really help. I have my background in here, but I am going to do another layer. I'm actually going to lock that painting layer temporarily, and I'm going to turn that off because I want to see the thistle. And this part is, we're going to say painting thistle. And I'm going to go ahead and paint in this area. Maybe I'll even paint something different than a thistle. I'm going to use my eyedropper to grab the green color that I want. I'll grab my brush tool. And for this one, I'm going to make my brush smaller, and I'm going to make the hardness harder. And we're going to play around with our brush settings. And I'm plugging in my drawing tablet right now, so brush settings will definitely make a bigger difference. We're going to work off of pen pressure here, which is what I'm looking for. And I have that set up. Let me just test the size. That size looks okay. So this is with the mouse. But then this is the drawing tablet. So you can see it's got much better line quality, right? It almost looks like I'm using a really nice high quality pen. So use the drawing tablet as much as you need to. You don't have to do it for all of it, but you probably would want to use it for at least some of it. And I'm just going to kind of start with some like basic outlining here, kind of some rough sketching of what I want to include. I know I also have some of those thistles in there too, and the stems, just kind of some basic tracing here, getting the rough shapes down. Now again, you get to change this if you want to, or you should change at least part of it. So like mine, I'm going to adjust the values. I'm going to make it a little brighter maybe. In the other one that I did, I added a bee. I made sure my purple flowers were nice and visible. And I'm just using this one tone to kind of sketch out what I'm working with here, just because it's kind of a starting point. I'm working on the thistle layer under my layers panel. And depending on the complexity of your image, this might take, half an hour or several hours, really depends on the image itself. Either way, you want to spend some time on it and make sure you actually put some effort into it to make it look really nice. You want this to be a nice high quality image. Okay, from here, maybe I want to use my mixer brush tool, and maybe I'm going to try a different color green, maybe a little bit lighter green, something like that with my mixer brush. You'll kind of see how this works. Let's just try that. This is great for kind of filling in areas. It'll kind of mix with those edges a little bit. Like I said, it's kind of like a oil painting brush. Just some basics. Again, I'm not going to do this whole thing because that would bore the crap out of you. But get that general shape down. The beauty of this is if you make a mistake, you can just do Control Z. And you can always drop that opacity down to kind of see what you're working with, see how it's looking. And right now I'm going to bring this opacity up to, and if I zoom out, you should be able to kind of see what's going on so far. So not too bad. I got my sketch in. I'm just going to basically be filling in layers. And the more you layer on colors, the nicer that digital painting is going to look. So you might need to pay attention to, the original image, like the shading and again, the colors. If I zoom in here, we can see, there's a lot of points on this. So I might want to include that. There's kind of this highlight on the edge here that I might want to include, the lines on the inside of the thistle leaves, and then again those purple flowers for the thistles. Okay, but that's enough to probably get you started at least, and seeing it all together here, I think it actually works pretty good. Something like that. Unlock that. There you go. So you can kind of see it all together, what that's looking like so far with the background in there as well. Again, do file save as you're working on this, and as you continue on, you're going to get it looking a little bit better, especially when you're adding on those layers of color and highlights and extra details. But just remember that selection part, a selection, save your selection, and then load it each time you work on it. When you're totally done, you're going to go into File, Export, and then Export As, and you're going to choose JPEG as your format, and then you'll click Export. And then that will be exporting your final image for submission for this assignment.